Well, if you've not hung out with me for very long, or maybe we've never hung out, I don't know, or maybe you've come in here on Sunday and you think, why does this guy attempt to be funny so much? And he's really just not. Maybe you don't fully understand my humor. My humor can tend to be misleading sometimes. Okay? A lot of times, what I say comes across bland or dry in my attempts to be humorous. Does anybody know the type? Does anybody know me and you've been confused so far? So a lot of times what happens is I'll say something and it either falls flat, people think that I'm just confused, or they think I'm lying, okay? And I get that a lot. Thankfully, I've got this wife that kind of comes behind me and cleans things up, and she frequently is telling me he's not lying. He's trying to be funny. And I mean, obviously I'm hilarious, but sometimes it doesn't take. For instance, okay, so we're in the process of purchasing a house. If you have not bought a house in the recent history, it's a nightmare out there. I mean, truly, truly a nightmare. Houses are going up for sale, and then they're selling the next day for way, way more money than they should be. And it's not some houses, it's every one of them. It's wild. If you're considering selling your home, you should do it. You'll make a ton of money and then tithe off of that. But it's really wild out there. I mean, seriously, it's been horrible. It's been a nightmare. So we're looking at all these houses. We're going house to house. And last week, the realtor took us to this house that is being flipped. And she prefaced this tour of this home with, man, they're getting crazy over there. The kids are getting wild. They're going to come out and they've got paint on their faces, glow-in-the-dark stuff. They've been raving next door. So she says to me, don't judge it right now. And it was never a real good thing when you're walking in to look at a house, right? We knew that it was being flipped, but it's the kind of house that I anticipated walking in and looking out the window and seeing a couple kids across the street staring at the house, because that's the house that, like old man Marley lives in. His family is dead. He may have killed them. We don't know. Like, it's that type of house, right? There's that tree with no leaves on it, broken fence. It's that type of place. So I toured this house before Shayna, and I had walked through it with the realtor. And then Shayna shows up, and we start to walk through it again. And I tell Shayna, I said, it's already been flipped, and this is what we get. And Shayna, knowing me, just says, shut up, and then we move on. No harm, no foul, right? And the realtor felt terrible. And she's like, no. She immediately starts to backtrack in this thing like, it's not been flipped yet. And in my head, I'm thinking, the walls are permeated with urine. Like, obviously the house has not been flipped yet. But she didn't get it, and this doubt creeps in her mind that this guy's an idiot. And, and of course, I have to clean up from my mistakes. Same thing happens at home all the time. I've got a 6-year-old who doesn't believe a word I say. We spend most of our time together, and yet she still thinks I'm lying all the time. I've gotten to this point with Sailor where she'll ask a question, I'll answer the question, and then she'll squint at me, and she'll grin a little bit, and she'll just stare, because she has no idea if I'm telling the truth. And I don't know why, because I truly don't lie to my kids. The other night, actually, Friday night, we were at Scouts Ballet Recital, and we're leaving, and I've got Sailor with me. She says, what time is it? And I said, I don't know, probably about 10. And she just stops and stares at me and squints a little bit. And I'm thinking, why in the world would I lie to you about what time it is? But that's how it is in our home, right? And obviously, like that, those are silly examples of doubt, but we have major doubt. Doubt is easily obtained. We can get a hold of doubt in our life in anything, from flipped homes to what time it is to deeper issues, things that get into our hearts and deep-seated things. The question is not, do we doubt? Do we lack the trust in the things around us, or face issues that further perpetuate the doubt in our life? The question is, when we come up on doubt, do we bring that stuff back to God? Is God involved in the process of doubt? So let's look at this. Let's take a look at some of the things that we know about doubt. First blank in your notes is this. We know about doubt. The awareness of the source of doubt is important. We have to know where the doubt comes from. That's not it. We have to know where the doubt comes from. Being a doubter is not a personality trait. It's not a characteristic. It's not something that we were born with, that we are automatically doubting on. Being a doubter is not a personality trait. And a lot of times what we do is we take these things that we think are personality traits and we claim them as just as I am. Don't pay attention to that crazy screen right now. Focus. Focus. I don't know. It's going weird. You may need to shut that down. Or just get your notes out and work quickly. We claim these things as just who as I am. And 99% of the time when people claim characteristics or personalities that were never intended to be characteristics or personalities, they're always negative. You've heard me say before, because it's one of my biggest pet peeves in the world, but people grab a hold of things, characteristics or things that they think are personality traits, and they own them as hard as they can. And they're always almost always negative. Nobody is ever saying, man, I don't care what you think. I'm just a very kind person. They're never saying like, man, I am incredibly patient. It's just who God made me. You know, I don't care what you think. I'm very humble. Like nobody's grabbing the positive things. We always grab these things, or you hear these characteristic traits that people cling to as you know, I'm just very obnoxious. I don't care what you think. You know, I say what I think. It's just who God made me to be. And we cling to these things and we claim these things as personalities and characteristics that were never intended to be characteristics or personalities. And we do the same thing with doubt. We were never intended to be doubters. I think God expects it and God understands it, but God did not put it in us to do. It's not a trait, it's a process. And in the process, we're trying to figure out what's next. Doubt is in the process. You still with me? You doing okay without the screens? No. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to jot down number 2 on a piece of paper. I'm going to hold it up with them underlined so you know. I'm going to be extra clear today. This is why you have to bring Bibles to church. I'm just saying. Doubt is not a character trait. It's part of the process. We have to figure out what's next. Maybe you've lost your job and you can't figure out why. Maybe you can't figure out why God, allows bad things to happen to good people. And really, you can insert whatever your doubt looks like. Is my kid going to be okay? Am I ever going to experience healing? Will I ever be able to buck depression? Will I ever be able to deal with my addictions? Because we can't address every issue in the next 20 minutes. What we have to do is figure out how to line our spirit up with God's spirit so that when we're in the season of doubt, we know what to do with it. Does that make sense? So the question becomes, what is the trial that you're facing? And are you lined up with God? According to James chapter 1, what do we do with the doubt? Because we all have people in our life who experience doubt or cling to doubt. We all have people in our life that do it in everything that they do. But there's a difference in always doubting things, that being doubtful of everything, and then stopping and questioning everything in the growth process. There has to be a question. We have to know where the doubt comes from. We have to know the source of the doubt. Here's number 2. Are you ready? Here we go. Number 2. Do you hear me? Here's number 2. Faith being tested is normal. Faith being tested is normal. Anybody ever been tested before? Let me ask this, husbands and wives, have you ever been tested in your marriage before? Come on. I haven't, but some people have. See, here's the thing. Here's the thing. You never really know what you have until it's been tested. Okay? Being tested is normal. And a lot of times what happens is we're going off these ideals that we see on Facebook or social media. We see people's highlight reel. And because it doesn't appear that they're being tested, we all of a sudden think that we're broken because we are really struggling. And the picture that I saw on Facebook of this couple, man, their marriage is flawless. Why am I broken? And we have to have an understanding that the testing is incredibly normal. A couple weeks ago, we went and got family photos taken. And the pictures came out pretty good. We were pretty pleased with them. The kids look good. Shana looks good. I was stunning. And these these pictures came out pretty good, right? And so the presentation, the ones that we present, are filled with love and laughter and happiness and perfect color correcting. What we didn't present are the ones that get scrapped, right? Photographer takes 900 photos and gives you 7. We didn't present the ones where Scout is running around like crazy because there's mosquitoes all over, freaking out. We didn't post the ones that, Sloan is standing up on one of the props and she falls off of it, so she's crying, and the sailor feels bad because Sloan falls, so she's crying. And those are the ones that just me and Shana took photos at that time because everybody's crying. And we don't we present the highlight reel, right? And because we see the highlight reel, we assume that everybody is in good shape and we're the ones that are struggling. Don't assume that you're the only one being tested because of what you're seeing in someone else's life. Philippians 2 says, continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill his good purpose. See, we can have questions, but what are we doing with the questions? It's more of a when you're being tested, not if you're being tested. The testing is coming. Here's number 3. What do we know about doubt? Perseverance is a building of your faith. Number 3, perseverance is a building of your faith. It's not a deconstructing of your faith. It's a building of your faith. Hard times are not there to deconstruct your faith. And sometimes things get broken down, but perseverance builds them back up. It's part of the growth process. Sometimes we want to start things over because it didn't go the way that it was supposed to go in the first place. We want to stop and restart. But Scripture is telling us, man, just press on. Perseverance is what builds you up. And every once in a while you might get knocked back a step, but perseverance says, okay, I'm going to push through it. I'm going to rebuild that step. Not go back to the beginning, but rebuild that step and press on. C.S. Lewis says this, God knows our situation. He will not judge us as if we had no difficulties to overcome. What matters is the sincerity and perseverance of our will to overcome them. See, it's not about the fact that we face problems. God understands that we're going to face difficulties. It's the posture that we take during the difficulty. It's the stance that we take during the difficulty. See, a lot of our perseverance comes down to the posture and the stance that we take in the growth process. Your distance will be determined by the way that you set yourself up to handle and walk through the doubt. Did you hear me? Your distance will be determined by how you stand during the difficult time. God expects you to have difficult times, but how are you going to stand through it? What's the posture that you take? Here's number 4. We know that maturity is the goal. So what is maturity? Maturity is lacking nothing. It doesn't simply apply to material things. That's part of it, but it's in our relationship with other people. It's in our relationship with God. It's in the material things. It's in the emotional things. How many of us can say that we actually lack nothing? Maturity is getting to the point where we don't. Where God has pulled everything together. We're always striving towards something, but when it comes to our spiritual walk, can we honestly say that we don't lack anything? Can we honestly say that we have reached that point where we don't need anything else? So now that we know what doubt looks like, let's look at our next step. How do we get to our next step? Number one, short of maturity, we ask for help. Short of maturity, we ask for help. Let me ask you this. Does anybody struggle to ask for help? Anybody struggle with that? I do. Man, I do. I really feel like all your hands should be up. Mine should be higher than anybody's. I struggle so much to ask for help. I hate doing it. Why? Because pride gets mixed in with doubt. And when pride gets mixed in with doubt, it makes the doubt real. And that real doubt burrows deep inside of us and it starts to chip away at us. Help breaks down doubt. Help breaks down doubt. James says that we should ask because God gives generously without finding fault, and it will be given to you. God gives generously, and he doesn't see our fault. He just wants to give it to us. In Luke chapter 15, Jesus tells 3 parables, 3 stories, back to back to back. The first parable that he tells is the parable of the lost sheep. And then immediately he starts telling another parable of the lost coin. And then he goes into a third parable about the lost son. Some of you know the stories. He's talking to the disciples and he's talking to a group of religious leaders. And in the third parable, we find a dad with 2 sons. One of the sons asks the dad for his inheritance. The dad generously gives it to him. The son, thinking that he knows everything now because he's got money, takes off to another country. He thinks he's ready to make the right choices because he's got the money in his hand, and he eventually finds himself broke, eating the same things as the pigs eat on the farm. And either in a moment of clarity or in a moment of shame, he asks himself, what in the world am I doing? What am I doing? How did I get here? So he decides to go home, and some of you know the story. He goes home, the father welcomes him, takes off running towards him, brings him into his home, throws him a party. See, a lot of us are willing to live a life living with the pigs. A lot of us are willing to live a life eating the same things that the pigs eat, just like the guy in the story. Whatever that might be. I have no idea what pigs eat. We can talk later, farmers. Somewhere in my back of my head, I feel like it's bacon, but I'm getting the vibe that that's the wrong thing. Does anybody you've never really thought about what pigs eat, and you just assume it's bacon? But it's not. Do they, I don't know, grass, mud? I literally don't know. Let's get back to it, come on. Some of us are okay living with the fact that we stress and we worry and we have anxiety. More doubt comes into our head each and every day, and we're okay with it because we don't want to ask for help. We don't want to seek help out. When in reality, we've got this Father who is so incredibly anxious to pour it all back on us. We've got this Father who's willing to do it over and over and over again. He's already given us our inheritance. And we walk away, but he's willing to say, come back, come back. And then when we walk away, he's willing to say, come back, come back, come back. Here's number 2. Our ask for help is a letting go of doubt. It's letting go of doubt. See, our ask for help is us going to someone else in an effort to confirm one direction or another. It gives us the confidence that the person that we're going to, the person we're talking to, is going to bring some clarity to the thing that we have doubt in. It's also a reality check of the intentions of letting go. Again, C.S. Lewis says this: we all want progress. But if you're on the wrong road, progress means doing an about turn and walking back to the right road. In that case, the man who turns back soonest is the most progressive. That's good. You can quote me on that. Just put C.S. Lewis under my name. Sometimes it takes an admission that we're going the wrong way. Sometimes it takes more humility than we would rather give to make any type of progression, any type of growth. Sometimes we have to admit and humble ourselves before we can begin to move in the right direction. Here's number 3. We have to retire the habits of instability we've created. Retire the habits of instability that we've created. James chapter 1 and verse 8 says, such a person is double-minded and unstable in all they do. A couple verses later, blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. What habits have we created? I was talking to Shayna the other night, and I was kind of giving her some of my insecurities. And we do that with their spouse, probably more than they should. So Shayna's really good at handling me with kid gloves sometimes. Sometimes she's really good at reading the temperature of the conversation. Maybe you know where I'm headed. And she can feel it out. Sometimes she knows to be sensitive with my insecurities. So the other night I'm talking to her, and I'm giving her some of these, and I'm like, man, it's like every single time. And she says, you are actually insane. That's what she said to me. And I thought, whoa, little blow, right? And she says, you are insane. She says, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result. Truthfully, what habits are we creating? So the same thing happens in our doubt. When you begin to trust the process, when you begin to trust the people in your life, when you begin to trust the events around your life, when you begin to trust yourself, you put trust in the things that are happening around you, how much easier does it become to trust God, to start to trust God? If the habits that we're forming around the physical world lead us to less doubt, wouldn't it be the same thing in our relationship with God? If what's happening around us and our trust in the process leads us to doubt less, can't we apply the same principle to our walk with God? It goes both ways. When the habits that we've formed through are in real life, or these real doubts that are seated in our lives, when they begin to solidify, the doubt becomes disbelief. When the habits that we form are filled with doubt, they solidify things. And all of a sudden it goes from, I doubt that God's going to give me healing. I doubt that God is going to take care of me. I doubt that my finances can get better, to, I'm not sure that God is there. And all of a sudden, where we're hoping that God is going to do something, now we believe that he's not actually there to even do it. At the end of Matthew chapter 28, Jesus is speaking, and he gives what's known as the Great Commission. It's his final words in Scripture. He gives this charge to the disciples and ultimately followers. In verse 16 it says, then the 11 disciples went to Galilee. There were 11 because Judas was the 12th. Judas let doubt creep in his mind, and he could go in the direction of Jesus, or he can go in a different direction. He went in a different direction that ended in suicide. It says, then the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. When they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. Then Jesus came to them and said, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations. Jesus is talking to this group of guys. Some had doubt. That means that some had faith. So Jesus is talking to a group of guys. Some were faith-filled and some were filled with doubt. And he says, go and do something. All of you. All 11 of you. The faith-filled ones and the ones filled with doubt. Go and do something. Take action. And in his final words, he says, and surely I am with you always to the very end of age. He said, go and do because I'm with you. Go and do something because I'm with you. I think there were people sitting there with him that had doubt because of the things that were happening around him. Let me remind you of the story. At this point, there are 12 men sitting on a mountainside. One of them was just brutally beaten. He was hung on a cross for dead. He was put in a tomb for 3 days. Then they meet him on a mountainside. I feel like I would have some doubt in my head too. I feel like there would be plenty of doubt in my head. And Jesus closes out this charge to them. Go and do something. Take action. And I'm with you. I'm going to be with you in it. The faith-filled ones and the doubters. See, the same charge is there for us today. Go and do. But rest assured, I'm with you. Go and do something, but rest assured, I'm with you. I know that you have doubts, but I'm with you. I know that you're hurting, but I'm with you. I know that you're nervous and filled with anxiety, but I'm with you. I know it seems like things aren't going the way that they're supposed to go, but I'm with you. Let me pray for you. We'll close.